I lost myself inside a love that seemed like a miracle, but that gradually destroyed me like a slow poison. I still remember the first time he held my hand and told me I was everything he had hoped for his whole life. His words sounded like music. His gaze burned like promise. I, who came from lukewarm stories and small disappointments, believed it. I believed in every flower delivered for no reason, in every message at dawn saying that I couldn't sleep without thinking about myself. He involved me so fast that I didn't realize how much I was already surrendered before I even understood who he really was. For the first few months, everything seemed perfect. He filled me with gifts, made grandiose plans for a future in which I would be the protagonist of all his dreams. I was the woman of his life, the reason for his smile, the inspiration for him to change. I heard so many times that I was different, that no other had been so special, that I began to believe that true love had finally found me. But true love is not enough to erase you, and what it brought was exactly that, a slow and cruel erasure. The criticism began hidden among compliments. You're beautiful, but this dress doesn't value your body as much. I love you, but you talk too much when you're nervous. You're amazing, but sometimes you overdo it. I smiled embarrassedly, swallowed the discomfort, and accepted it. I thought I was careful, that maybe he was right, that love meant adjusting to fit what he needed. That's how I started to mold myself, to shrink, to doubt myself. Then came the jealousy. First, disguised as zeal. I just want to take care of you. That's why I don't like it when that colleague calls you. Then, as orders. Delete this photo. It doesn't match the woman I want by my side. And soon they became meaningless accusations. You smiled too much at the waiter. Why did you take so long to respond? Who is this friend who always comments on your photos? I defended myself, but in the end, I always apologized. He had a way of reversing everything, of making me believe that it was my fault, that I provoked suspicion, that if I was more careful, none of this would happen. The isolation came slowly, like a door closing without me noticing. Your family doesn't understand you like I do. Your friends are envious. They want to see you unhappy. And I, who wanted to prove my love, moved away. I stopped answering messages, refused invitations, made excuses, until I found myself alone, with only him for company. And that was exactly how he wanted, to be my only world, my only reference, my only judge. The fight started small, but always ended with me crying and him looking at me like I was crazy. You make things up in your head, he would say. You need therapy, not me. When I tried to confront something that didn't make sense, he laughed as if my suffering was a joke. That was the worst part, feeling pain and seeing the other laugh, as if my soul was just a cheap spectacle for their entertainment. I remember one night when he disappeared. The cell phone turned off, no response. I spent hours in agony, imagining accidents, betrayals, abandonments. When he finally returned near dawn, he entered the door as if nothing had happened. I asked him where he had been, and he replied dryly, "You're getting paranoid. I don't need to give you satisfaction." That cut me inside. I spent the day silently, trying to swallow the anguish. In the evening, he brought me chocolate and said, "You complicate things too much. I love you. It doesn't ruin everything." And I gave in, again, because the fear of losing was greater than the fear of losing myself. The body began to react before the mind. I trembled when he took a long time to answer. My stomach hurt when I saw his name on the phone. Insomnia has become frequent. Sleeping next to him was like standing on broken glass. Any wrong move could cut me off. But at the same time, when he wanted to, he was the sweetest man in the world. He made breakfast, hugged me from behind while I cooked, said he wanted to grow old by my side. This contradiction kept me stuck. The hope that the good side was the real one, and the bad one just a passing mistake. One day I found a message in his car, a short sentence on a forgotten canvas. "It was wonderful yesterday." The ground disappeared under my feet. When I confronted him, he smiled wryly. "You've gone crazy for good. Do you want to destroy our relationship because of your imagination?" I was shaking so much that I could barely speak. In the end, I was the one who apologized. I apologized for having seen what I saw, for having felt what I felt, for having dared to distrust him. And he, as a reward for my submission, took me to dinner that night. held my hand in front of everyone, and said that I was the only woman in his life. That's how they do it. They break you and then glue you together, and every time they glue you, you get more attached. I started to live in a cycle that I couldn't interrupt. The arguments came, the tears came, then the apologies, the promises, the gestures of exaggerated love. I knew I was trapped, but I couldn't get out. It was as if one part of me had died, and the other still struggled to believe that one day I would be truly loved by him. I loved him more than myself, and that was the biggest trap. Because when you love yourself less than you love the other, you accept anything. Accept the pain, accept the lie, accept the emptiness. I looked at myself in the mirror and no longer recognized my face. My eyes were dulled, my voice was low, my dreams had been shelved. I no longer existed without him, and that's exactly how he wanted it. I thought I had experienced the worst of him, but the truth is that the abyss was even deeper. The signs I ignored multiplied, and each time I closed my eyes to a pain, a new one appeared, more cruel, more suffocating. Living next to him was like walking through a minefield. I never knew which step would be the last before an explosion. His control became more intense. He began to choose my clothes, to decide whether or not I could wear makeup, to determine the tone of voice with which I should speak in public. If I smiled too much, it was provocation. If he smiled too little, it was contempt. If I kept quiet, it was a lack of interest. Everything I did was wrong, and he always had a speech ready to convince me that the problem was with me. I began to believe that maybe I was really defective, incapable of loving properly. Nightly discussions have become routine. He would arrive late, often smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, and yet he had the audacity to accuse me of treason. I defended myself in tears, begging him to believe me, and he laughed, that cold laugh that tore me apart inside. "You're pathetic. Look how you beg." Every word was a stab that I accepted quietly, because deep down I still feared losing him. He told me, "No one will want you anymore. I'm the only one who can stand you." And I believed it. I believed it so much that I started to be thankful that he didn't leave. The isolation he imposed became complete. I no longer spoke to my family. My friends gave up trying to reach me, tired of hearing excuses I made up to protect him. I was alone, locked in a world that was made only of him. And the more alone I was, the more dependent on him I became. He knew this, and he used it against me. When he wanted to punish me, he disappeared for days. It left me silent, without an answer, killing me little by little with anguish. When I came back, I would say, "You need to learn to value me." And I, in desperation, promised to be better, promised never to complain again, promised to give him everything I had left. The betrayal ceased to be suspicious and became evident. I found evidence, messages, perfumes, forgotten objects in the car, but every time I tried to confront him, he turned everything against me. "You're crazy. You're making up stories. You're destroying our relationship with your paranoia." And when I, exhausted, believed that maybe he was right, the sweet phase came, the honeymoon. He took me to dinner, made surprises, said he couldn't live without me. And I, already without strength, accepted it, like an addict who needs the dose of affection to survive. It was a cycle of torture and reward, and I was trapped inside it. The worst moment was when he exposed me. In an argument, he recorded my screams and sent them to a mutual friend, laughing at the crazy thing he had at home. I felt my dignity shatter. How had I gotten to that point? How had I allowed someone who claimed to love me to turn me into a spectacle of humiliation? I spent sleepless nights, with my chest tightened, feeling that life had lost its meaning. I didn't want to wake up anymore. It was as if I had disappeared into a hole from which there was no way out. But one day, something inside me broke differently. I didn't cry like I used to. I no longer begged. I just looked at him as he screamed, as he called me worthless, and realized that this man had never loved me. He never saw me as I was, only as an object to feed his own ego. At that moment, something cold took over me. I understood that continuing by his side would be my death sentence in life. I began to walk away in silence. I didn't announce anything. I just stopped responding with the same urgency. I stopped justifying every step. I stopped trying to convince him of my innocence. And he did. The controller slipped out of his hands, and it made him furious. He began to threaten me. If you leave me, I'll finish you. I tell everything to your family. I make everyone believe you're crazy. Fear paralyzed me, but at the same time, it showed me that I was already out of the illusion. Because when love becomes a threat, it is no longer love. It is prison. The last night was the longest. He arrived altered, his eyes full of anger. He grabbed my arm tightly, shook me, and said I would never have the courage to leave him. I looked into those eyes and realized that he was right. Until that moment, I didn't have the courage. But something has changed. I let go, grabbed the suitcase that was already hidden under the bed, and walked to the door. He screamed, laughed, said I would be back begging in a week. I didn't answer. I just left, my heart beating so loud that it felt like a war drum inside my chest. The first few days were hell. I trembled with every notification on my phone, fearing it was him. I dreamed of his voice calling me back. I woke up sweaty, lost between fear and longing. Because yes, even after everything, I missed it. The addiction to his crumbs of affection still gnawed at me. But each day without him, I took a little deeper breath. Each night without fights, without humiliation, I understood that I was finding myself again. I was still bleeding inside, but the blood was no longer his. It was only mine. And for the first time in a long time, I was the owner of my pain. Today, when I look back, I see the woman I was, and I hardly recognize her. I hug her in silence because I know she loved too much, believed too much, gave herself too much. I don't blame her. The mistake was never to love. The mistake was to love him more than myself. And this is the scar I will carry, not as shame, but as a reminder of what I never want to live again.